Hey guys, today I want to talk about small world, the expat small world. When I first got here, I ran into a guy that was from my hometown. I talked about this a little bit, but I want to get more into detail in this whole subject because it's kind of cool. It seems like whenever you travel someplace, you always meet somebody from close to where you live, despite the fact that you kind of want to get away from that. But then when you get here, you kind of miss people from back home. And you always meet somebody that kind of fills that void. And when I first got here, I ran into a guy named Mike Kane. We became close friends. I actually knew a relative of his back home. And just before I left, the guy had told me, he said he was a firefighter, and I worked in the schools as a school safety officer. He come over to do a fire drill, okay? And when he was there during the fire drill, I started talking to him. And he says, hey, you retire? And, we were talking back and forth because he overheard a conversation or whatever. And I think his last name was Kane, too. He was on the fire department, Lawrence Fire Department. Anyway, what happened was this. We started talking. He was telling me about one of his relatives over here, which I found very funny. So when I was talking to him, he says, oh, you'll probably never meet him. But in reality, guess what? The first person I met over here was Mike, and that was his relative. And Mike and I had a lot of things in common when I got here. When we started talking, he went to St. Patrick's Church, which was a Catholic church, which I used to go to a lot for friends of mine that had passed away, or for christenings, or what have you. Once in a while I'd go there, or sometimes we'd have something going on there. And what happened was this, is that I got to know a little bit more about him. And I found out when he passed away, I was going through some papers for him to help the VFW guy because the family gave us permission to help with, helping with his death and everything. And because he had nobody else here. So what happened was I found out through going through his papers that he grew up on Garfield Street in Lawrence, Mass. And I actually had some kids over there that I was kind of like a big brother to, and that I used to mentor over on the same street in the same house. Really strange that to the first person I meet over here, I mean, what are the odds of that, of all the billions of people in the world? You would think it would be slim, but it's really quite common over here. And sometimes I notice when we're sitting at the our get-togethers or whatever, a lot of the people start talking and they start realizing, I live right down the street from you, or I live right around the corner, or I lived in the same town. It's actually very, very common. Think about this. The United States is a huge place. It's really big. Yet, we always have these people that, yes, a lot of people travel around in their life because they're in the military or whatever, but it seems to be like some people, they always run into somebody that either they know or they're one person away from knowing somebody else. They talk about people that they know sometimes. I know him. It's really funny because we think of the world as a big world, and it's really a small world. It's very, very tiny, and you don't realize how small it is until you travel and you get out there. One time I was at an ATM in Belize, and I was at the ATM in Belize, and I met a guy from the Lawrence School Department there. It was a teacher. He worked at another school, and I didn't know him. I had never met him in the Lawrence School Department because there's a lot of teachers in the Lawrence School Department in Massachusetts. And we started talking and stuff, and it was really weird because I know you're going to run into people when you travel a lot because you're around a lot of people, you see a lot of people, you meet a lot of people, but I never realized how small really the world is. I mean, I remember running into a guy in China one time, and the guy was telling me he grew up in Boston. And here's a guy he was like the last person in the world I ever thought would grow up in Boston. And he grew up just outside, and he was a child of some people that immigrated there and opened a restaurant. And it was really interesting to hear his story because, I met him while I was sitting down in the airport, and, here's a guy in China, born where I was born, to Chinese parents. it was just kind of cool to see that. You know, it kind of fascinated me. And I really appreciate it sometimes when I run into people like that, because it just kind of fascinates me, because we always think of the world as massive, huge, and we think there's too much population here. And there probably is. And I think a lot of people kind of stay in their own world, their own little town or whatever, and those people never travel out. But the people that do travel really travel a lot. So I think that you're more likely to run into those people, probably. Maybe. That's just my summation of what I think. You know, I could be wrong, I could be right. And it just amazes me. You know, and the other day, on Thanksgiving Day, when I was sitting there and some of the guys were telling me, oh, you know, hey, I was right around the corner from these people. I hear that quite a lot at the meetings. And sometimes you got to smile because it's kind of cool. And it just fascinates me. I just want to kind of share that with you guys today. And maybe you guys can share your thoughts and your things that have happened to you in your life that have happened. Because sometimes when you're in the weirdest places and you're the farthest away from home, it's usually when you run into somebody. And usually it's when you need somebody the most sometimes. I noticed when I ran into my friend Mike, the guy that I told you that I ran into as soon as I got over here, it was at a time where I was kind of moving on with my life. And I kind of needed like a piece of something from back home too, to make that move. And I think if Mike wasn't there, I'm not sure if I would have made it over here. Mike kind of smoothed the way for me. And I only got to know him for 3 months before he passed away. But he definitely smoothed the way for me and made it better for me, because it made me feel more at home over here, knowing that I knew somebody from my hometown that was in my circle of friends. And that was a big blessing to me, and a huge blessing to me. But anyway, guys, God bless. I hope you enjoyed today's show. It's just something I wanted to share with you today. God bless, guys. Take care.